breathe in or breathe out. Hands up or hands down. Back up, back up. Tell me what you want to do now. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Yeah! Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where Matt and Todd watch a Netflix top 10 movie, and then we record it and talk to each other about it, share our feelings. We even rate it for you on our custom rating scale, and then you listen to it, and hopefully everyone's happy, and it helps you decide whether or not you want to watch this movie. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and yes, welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be reviewing the movie Bad Trip, which I have a hard time figuring out if it came out last year and it actually came out, or it was just supposed to come out, or if it came out this year. I don't know.
I don't know either. My gut tells me that it never actually hit theaters.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
But it came to Netflix, I think, on March 26th. So here we are watching it.
Here we are.
How does your intro tie into this movie, Todd?
Well, the story of this Jackass-style movie is about a road trip. So you keep rolling. Fred Durst informed us to keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
Yeah.
Keep rolling on your bad trip.
On your bad trip.
I see it. Okay. Well, this movie has a few people that I recognized in it.
Yes.
One of them was Lil Rel Howery.
Yes.
Who was in Get Out, notably.
And the movie that had all the old NBA stars as old men on it, Uncle Drew, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was a decent movie. And Michaela Conlin. Michaela Conlin. Sorry, I looked up how to pronounce her name and then I butchered it.
I
recognized her mostly from Bones because my wife really liked to watch Bones, so I secondhand smoked that series quite a bit.
Yes,
so,
that's also where I recognized her from.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I guess the writer and main star Eric André, I did not recognize him. He looked very familiar to me, but I didn't recognize him from anything that I could think of.
He probably looks familiar to you because there's a couple, only one that I can think of, but there might be more, memes of him from his, he's got a show, I think it's the Eric André show, where it's kind of like a talk show, but it's also like shock value show. Like he does all these weird things with celebrities on his show to get a shock out of them or something.
Gotcha.
And his specific meme is him sitting back in his desk that's saying something like, "Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?" or something.
Oh, gotcha.
Something like that. But it's a pretty widely used meme.
Well, that may be the source of my recognition. And the other person who's in this who I could pick out is Tiffany Haddish.
Yes.
A woman I love to hate, her acting. So
I think she's only been in one movie that we've ever reviewed, right? The Best Friend cosmetic movie or whatever.
What was that called? Like a Boss?
That's probably it.
Yes,
sounds
that
familiar.
was it.
Yeah.
Like a Boss. Well, so that's who's in it. I don't think I missed anyone.
No, everyone else who's in it are like real people, real.
Yeah, pretty much.
Real watchers or whatever.
So this is an interesting movie. Interesting to explain, at least. There is a plot. The plot is these two guys, played by Eric André and Lil Rel Howery. Um, Chris and Bud are
Mm-hmm.
are enticed by, well, let's see. Chris meets up with by random encounter at his workplace uh, his high school crush Maria, uh, played by uh, Michaela Conklin. That's not right. Michaela. Michaela Conlin. I owe her $5. Sorry, sorry, Michaela.
The woman from Bones.
Yes. So Chris meets Maria at his yogurt shop workplace, and she entices him to come to New York City, where she manages a some kind of art gallery. She doesn't actually invite him. She invites him to stop by if he's ever in New York.
Yeah.
But he takes that as like this idea of, I'm going to go on a road trip to New York City from Florida, and go with his friend Bud, and to do that they steal Bud's sister's car, Trina, who is played by Tiffany Haddish, and also the character is in jail when they take the car. So they go on a wild road trip through the mid Atlantic or the East Coast states from Florida all the way up to New York City. Tiffany Haddish's character breaks out of jail and finds out that they took her car, and she steals a police car and drives that up after them, trying to track them down. So that's sort of the main plot. Everyone ends up in New York City, and there's a confrontation between Chris and Maria. There's a confrontation between Trina and Bud, and then the movie ends.
Yeah.
So, but the other component of this movie is there are like Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective type, like prank, absurd situations that happen in the movie that are being filmed by hidden camera, and obviously the actors know what's going on, but there are people who are in the movie who are not in on the pranks and are just reacting as normal people would.
Yeah.
So one example is Chris is working at an auto detailer and he's detailing someone's car, and he gets the guy to turn on the vacuum cleaner, and the vacuum that he's using to clean the car sucks his clothes right off of him, and he's suddenly naked. And the guy who turns on the vacuum is not in on it and responds in a way that an everyday person would respond. And there's plenty of these types of gags throughout the film woven into the story that I already described.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the deal. What did you think of this, Todd?
Well, so I think to feed a probably bad side of myself, I enjoy these type of things probably more than I should. Like I was saying either on last podcast or we just talked personally about it, like that I've seen all the Jackass movies. I look forward to the next one that's coming out sooner than later. And I feel bad that I enjoy them, but you know, it's a fact of life at this point. So that being said, there's aspects of this movie that I thought were pretty interesting, like the woven together. You know what? It's kind of comparable to the college admission scandal thing that we watched, where it's like you have these real life situations where these actors are doing something, and it's all these like people who aren't in on it responding to it, hidden camera type stuff. And then they have this whole plot of this movie that's kind of like woven in where they actually have acted scenes together. Like they're actually doing scenes from a movie. And I found it to be pretty interesting. I didn't know how it was going to play. I didn't know if I would like it. I don't know. I didn't know if like every time they were in these type of scenes, I was going to be like, get back to, poop jokes and stuff so I can laugh or whatever. And it just was pretty interesting. I think the benefit of this movie is that it's super short. There's only like 124 minutes, I think, 126, something pretty short. And I was like, that's perfect because it's not so much of it or long enough for me that I got tired of it. And it was enough. It followed this plot enough that I was interested to see what the next skit or whatever was going to be, or what the next prank or whatever was going to be, as they went from Florida to New York and experienced all these different things. So, that being said, that I don't know why I enjoy this kind of stuff, and it definitely was super funny at times. I found myself cracking up. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. It just is. There was one scene that I was incredibly uncomfortable with, which was, there's a scene where after the two main characters have this fight and kind of like break up as friends, that one of them goes to an army recruiting tent because he wants to join like a war and die, basically, is what he says to the recruiter. And I was so uncomfortable with that scene of like going to a guy who's in the active military and telling him that he wants to die and stuff like that, when that's like a super real issue with veterans and people who are out of the military or in the military. And I was like,
and the guy's not in on it.
He's
just there doing like he's working at a recruiter tent.
Yeah, and I was cringing the whole time. I was so uncomfortable. Now, I didn't like that scene. I thought it was crossing a line. The only thing, I'm not going to say it makes it okay because I still think they shouldn't have done it, but a saving grace for this movie to me was during the credits, they go back to almost every scene and show the people's reactions to when they find out they're on TV, that it's all fake. And I don't know if they show from every scene, but it was pretty overwhelming with like people laughing and including the army guy laughing and being a part of it, like and laughing at what happened and stuff like that. And I was like, thank you for putting that in because that scene was so uncomfortable to me. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay. It just meant that at the end of the movie, I didn't feel so cringy about it. Like, that being said, I don't want to watch the scene ever again. But I appreciated that they put that stuff in during the credits to at least show that they had a lot of good sports. I'm sure they didn't show the people who refused to be in it or were mad or whatever, which I'm sure there was plenty of them. So anyway, that's the big asterisk that I think I have to throw in there. That was over the line. I didn't appreciate it. It shouldn't have been in the movie. I think that's a pretty untouchable subject to me. But that's the problem with these shock value movies and things, is that every time one comes out, you've got to top the next one. Like, you got to top that one when the next one comes out. And inevitably, you're going to be crossing lines that I think you shouldn't be crossing. So that was definitely a minus. But otherwise, if you're of an adult age and you want to laugh, or you're around some buddies and you're just like chilling and you want to laugh, there's a place for this kind of movie to watch with friends or watch for yourself and just laugh. And just, I don't know, if this stuff makes you laugh, then definitely. If you are the kind of person who hates this kind of stuff, then don't watch this movie. Like, if it's just going to make you cringe for the entire hour and a half and make you feel uncomfortable, then don't bother with it. But if you can laugh about this kind of stuff, it does its job incredibly well of having these ridiculous scenarios that turn out mostly funny and all this kind of stuff. So watch it and enjoy it if that's something you can do. If it's not, then don't bother with it. Don't try it. Especially if what I already explained with the military stuff would make you cringe too, then maybe either skip that scene or don't watch it altogether. So that's where I'm at. Matt, how did you feel about this movie?
Well, Todd, so going into this, I'll just say that I we had seen the preview of this last year in theaters when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
And
a lot too. They played this trailer a lot. Like they
yeah.
were really hyping it.
Yeah, and my overwhelming response was, I do not want to see that movie.
Yeah.
And so if this movie had not come up on the Netflix #1 movie in America, I would not have watched this movie. So that was my sour attitude going into watching the movie. And what concerned me was I didn't want to see a lot of like I knew that there was pranks in the movie, and I didn't want to see a lot of pranks that kind of I guess took advantage of people who weren't in on the joke, like to make the joke, like making those people the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And I think that they did not do that by and large.
True.
I think the one scene which you described is probably the closest they came to making the bystander the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
And even that, it wasn't really that, but yeah, it was a bit of an uncomfortable scene, as you described. So I will report that I laughed quite a few times out loud at this movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny in the way, like I mentioned, in the way of like a Jim Carrey, like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, like that kind of absurd comedy. Some facial expressions going along with it. A lot of physical comedy, physical humor.
Yeah.
And some things that just caught me by surprise that I just busted out laughing. Like, I can't believe that just happened type thing, which is exactly what they're going for with these types of things. And I agree with you about the end of the movie when they showed the people who weren't in on it getting filled in on that they were in a movie.
Yes.
That was great for two reasons. One, yes, you could see that they were kind of like relieved that what they just saw didn't actually happen, and so you felt better about it. But also that that those people really weren't in on it, because as I was watching it, I was not sure at a few different points, like who was in on it and who was an actor, and for the most part, you find out at the end, basically no one was in on most of these things.
Right.
So I thought that was I agree with you, that was a definite plus to have that kind of credits ending scene over the credits type thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, this humor is pretty raunchy in a lot of cases. So do understand that if you're going to watch the movie. If you like raunchy humor, great, watch it, because you're gonna enjoy this, I think.
Yeah.
It's for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say, if that's all right with you, go ahead and watch this one. And they do a good job of not making people outside the jokes the butt of the joke, which was a huge plus for me in the end.
I think you're absolutely right about those for the most part, all those scenes were like, we're putting ourselves in an absolutely ridiculous situation that makes us look ridiculous, and here are these people's reactions to it. It's not like, how can we make fun of people or whatever. And for the other kinds of stuff in this genre, I'd say. The stuff that makes me laugh the most from like the Jackass movies and stuff is that kind of stuff. Here's our ridiculous thing that we're into, and here are just reactionary things to it. That's
Right.
super funny to me. When either the humor is on yourself, like you're making yourself look bad, or it's just such a ridiculous thing that you have to laugh at it, but not an awkward laugh on it. It's just like ridiculous. So
Yep.
I think they did that incredibly well. Um, and honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of really anyone in this movie besides the woman from Bones, and Tiffany Haddish is growing on me. Um, but the main two guys, I'm not the biggest fan of. But I thought everyone did a pretty well job of putting themselves in these crazy situations and making themselves the butt of the joke, really. And were able to carry out these reactionary shots and all that kind of stuff. So,
Agree.
well, Matt, um, how many Chinese finger traps would you give this movie? Um, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best finger traps. I won't spoil why there's a Chinese finger trap in this movie. I'll leave it for our audience to discover.
Yes. Well, the Chinese finger trap does feature prominently. Um, its first role is it's picked up by the character Chris as a memento of the road trip, as like a little souvenir on the way, but it plays a much larger role as time goes on.
Yes.
So I'm gonna say that this is a great example of this genre of movie, uh, and I'm going to also say that this genre of movie will have a hard time getting to the top of my rankings.
Sure.
It's just there to make you laugh. It's not really about like great movie making or great cinema. Although clearly a lot of work went into the scenes and the
Right.
pranks scenes.
Right.
So from that aspect, it was a pretty decent job of movie making. But I'm going to go with 3.3 finger traps for this. So decent rating from me.
Yeah. Pretty high marks. High marks from you, Matt, for this movie.
Yeah.
With your stipulation about how these movies will never make it to the top of your ranking.
Right.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Not exact, but I'm there. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Like the weirdest thing about this movie of why I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5 is because it felt like it was the perfect length movie to me for this genre. It just was not too long, and I felt they did a pretty good job of cutting each reactionary scene at a pretty decent time that you weren't like, oh, this is dragging, move on or whatever. Like, I think there was some pretty good editing in this movie that no scene really started to feel not fresh before we were already on to a new thing. And I think the funniest I laughed weirdly was when they're in like the cowboy dancing electric cowboy, I think it's called or whatever.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
what it's called.
was a good one. So 3.5 for me.
Okay. Well, that's going to give the average rating of 3.4 finger traps out of 5 for this movie.
It's pretty good for
Bad
us.
Trip. That is very good.
Yeah.
So, the stipulation is this is an adult film, and you got to be okay with raunchy stuff. But if you
Sure.
are,
And harsh
check it out.
language.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Check it out if you are down with all that stuff. So, Before we wrap up, Todd, I'll reveal to you our next film.
All right. I have not been on Netflix since I watched Bad Trip, so I don't think I have any guesses right now.
Okay. Well,
But if you feel like I might know it, feel free to give me the tagline and stuff. And
I will give you the tagline. I don't think you'll guess the name unless you actually are familiar with this movie. This is a kids movie.
Okay.
So, and the tagline is: Once upon a time, they met a witch in the woods, but the rest of this Hansel and Gretel story is wildly different than the one you've heard before.
I have no idea, but I'm guessing it's about Hansel and Gretel.
Yes. But the movie is called Secret Magic Control Agency.
Well, that title came out of nowhere. All right.
Which really really doesn't match up with Hansel and Gretel too much to me. Although I guess there is some magic in that movie. Or that
Do you want me to
story.
tell you my guess of what this movie's about just based off of the title?
Yeah, tell me.
My guess is that magic like exists in the world, but it's kind of hidden from by like a government agency, a la Men in Black or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Hansel and Gretel kind of make their way into a witch's area where they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to discover the secret, and it's about this agency trying to like cover her up, and maybe they team up with the witch or something, and it's a feel good family movie.
Nice. Well,
That's my guess.
I think it's a good guess, but we'll see how it plays out
Yeah.
when we share our rating and review of this film.
Nice.
So, before we wrap up, Todd, you have some personal COVID vaccination news to share, don't you?
Oh, that's
Since
true.
I shared
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. So, I found out Wednesday that I'm vaccinated, which why that's a weird story and why I just didn't know was that I think sometime after the summer I signed up for a vaccine trial with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine trial to be their guinea pig. And the basis of the trial and study was it was a double-blinded thing, which if you're a scientist you probably know what that means. But half of the people who were in the study got the vaccine and half the people got a placebo. And then you just have follow-up visits and they draw blood and they see how you're doing and all that kind of stuff. So, now that Johnson & Johnson is all approved and their one shots coming out and all that kind of stuff, they are unblinding everyone. And once you have your unblinding appointment, they let you know if you got the vaccine or not. If you didn't get the vaccine, they would give you the one-shot vaccine because they're changing the study to one shot versus two shot. Basically, in my unblinding appointment Wednesday morning, I found out that I did get the vaccine, and I've been vaccinated since early February.
Nice.
So, although I don't have a CDC card. I just have a piece of paper from the study saying I'm vaccinated.
Wow.
So I don't know.
I think that's just as good as a CDC card, considering like how official the CDC cards are. They're
Okay,
just pieces
good.
of paper, really.
Well, I know that like some places, like for travel and stuff, I've heard are looking at that stuff now to
Yeah.
be okay with that kind of stuff. And I'm like, if I show my paper, that better be good enough.
Well, you can always make your own CDC card. There's enough of them online. You can just print it out and fill it
That's
out
fair.
yourself.
That is fair.
So, not that we condone that. We don't.
No, absolutely not.
So Todd is fully vaccinated. I am fully vaccinated, but I haven't waited my 2 weeks yet
Yeah.
for my immune system to be totally primed and ready for defeating COVID at the earliest sign of it. But in 10 days, I think we will both be at a point where we're comfortable not only going to the movies, following whatever protocols they have, masks and all that, but being back in the Xterra, recording a podcast without masks on in the same place at the same time, which
Unbelievable.
has been a far-off dream for many, many months now. So
It's all coming together.
Something to look out for. What is...
That was something on my phone popped up. I don't know why it made that noise, but it was very awkward.
It was. Well, on that note, thank you for listening to our podcast where we reviewed Bad Trip this time around. And please keep listening. We'll keep making these and hopefully be back in the theaters before too much longer.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da
da da da.